Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to make today's notes as efficient as possible. We're going to do a short little piece, of notes, and then we're going to try problems 1 through 4. I've got stacked here different scenarios, and we're going to try to determine if it's an independent situation or a dependent situation. So, what in the heck is happening? We're going to look at the probability of two events occurring. Okay, so one's going to happen, and then the second one's going to happen. And if the second one has not been impacted by what happened in the first one, then we're going to call that an independent event. If the second one's chances or probability has been impacted in some way by what occurred in the first event, then we're going to call that a dependent situation. So I've got a bunch of scenarios stacked up here, and we're going to try to determine are they independent or dependent, and that's what you're going to do on problems 1 through 4. So it's going to be kind of like a 50-50 chance. All right. Before we get going on that, I wanted to remind you that, in our life, we're actually dealing with probability all the time. We may not realize it. And unfortunately, the people that calculate these probabilities, they know some pretty complex probability and statistics. And so, like, your car insurance is a bit of a situation like that, where the insurance company is trying to figure out what's the chance that you're going to get into an accident. And if your chances are pretty high, then your rates are pretty high, so that they can cover their costs for claims. So I hope that makes sense. But I think their scenario, what they're trying to calculate, is probably more complex than what we're capable of doing right now, since we're beginners, right? So we're going to have some easy scenarios, or maybe not easy, but easier, doable scenarios for a beginner, right? And when they're sometimes easy, we say, well, that's never going to come up in my life. And so I appreciate you trying to exercise your brain and understand some of these. Okay, hey, it's important that we determine, are they independent or dependent events? Okay, a random number generator generates two numbers. Well, the second number that the computer pops out is not dependent upon what number popped out the first time. It's if it's a computer that's programmed well, it's just going to randomly generate numbers. So I'm going to put that in the independent column. The second number that comes out is not impacted at all by the first number. Okay. This next one is about a raffle. If you've not been to a raffle before, they got maybe a bunch of tickets in there. You bought a ticket and you put a ticket in, and they draw out your ticket 25372. There's usually a number on the back. You can also put your information on it and all that kind of stuff. So there's only one number, or there's only one ticket in there with that particular number on it. They drew it out, and after they draw it out, they usually just put it in the trash, right? They throw it away. They don't put it back in the hopper. That number can't get drawn out again. So in that situation, the second place prize is impacted by what happens on the first place prize. So another ticket's drawn out for the second place prize. Well, the number of tickets in the hopper has changed because the first event has already occurred. So this is a dependent situation. So I'm going to move it over here to the dependent area. Let's see if I can shrink that down a little bit. All right. Okay. I hope that makes sense so far. Okay. So one spinner is spun twice. So, like a spinner from the game of life. I don't know if you ever play the game of life where you and it goes around, or like Wheel of Fortune. You ever seen that on TV? Well, the second event of spinning the wheel or spinning the spinner has nothing to do with what happened on the first event. We might kind of feel inside like it does. Like, well, it just came up on, I don't know, $200. It can't come up on $200 again. There's no way. Well, it's the same probability the second time as it was the first time. So we're not looking, when we try to make these decisions, we're not trying to answer the question, what's the probability they both come up on 200? We're just asking, does the second event have anything to, is it impacted by the first event occurring? So this one, I would say, is independent. So let's move it down here. You might disagree with that. You might say, well, where the spinner ends up would have some impact on the second spin. I agree with, there might be some more debate about this one, but I would say most people would say that's an independent event. On a math test, 5 out of 20 students got all the questions correct. If 3 of the students are chosen at random without replacement, what is the probability that all 3 got all the questions correct on the test? Now, so they're choosing a student out of this 20 group, and they're saying, hey, they either got all of them right? Let's see here, all questions correct, or they didn't, right? So they say, okay, here's a student. Boop, they pull that student out, they make a record. Okay, that's a student. They don't put that student back into the drawing. They're going to pick another student out, a second student out. So after they've drawn the first student out, there's only 19 students to choose from. And then on this, after they've drawn the second student out, there's only 18 students to choose from. So I would say this is a dependent event, because every time they draw out another kid, it's changing how many students they're drawing from in that 20 group. Okay, let's read the next one here. The pizza that Jose and Tessa are eating has 10 slices, half cheese, half mushroom. Tessa spins the pizza around and picks a piece of pizza out. She eats it. She doesn't like pick it out and say, hey, I got, whatever, and then put the piece of pizza back into the pie. She just pulls it out, right? And she puts it on her plate, or she eats it. Now Jose spins the pizza and selects a slice after that. What's the probability that both he and Tessa select a slice of mushroom? So this one would be a dependent event, because Tessa, we're assuming, is not putting the piece of pizza back on there. So we could, read it again, make sure that she doesn't put it back on. Yeah. So I would assume that Tessa, after she touches it, Jose's like, no, thanks. You can just have that piece, I'll spin without that one piece on there. So it's impacted by what Tessa chooses on the first event. All right. Hey, put the video on. Well, stop the video. You'll have another video to watch for the second set of problems. Try problems 1 through 4. See if you can get those right for dependent, independent events. Thanks for watching.